The rain poured heavily over the village of Capernaum. People hurried indoors, shutting wooden doors against the storm. Thunder rolled across the dark sky, and the streets quickly became rivers of mud. Inside a tiny house near the edge of the town lived a lonely shoemaker named Ezra. Every day, Ezra repaired sandals for travelers and fishermen. His hands were rough from years of hard work, but his heart had become harder than his hands. Years earlier, sickness had taken his wife and little daughter. Since then, Ezra stopped smiling. He no longer prayed, no longer believed, no longer hoped. One evening, while fixing an old sandal near candlelight, he overheard voices outside. "Jesus is coming to Capernaum tomorrow!" People rushed through the streets excitedly. "The healer?" someone shouted. "The teacher from Nazareth?" another asked. Ezra shook his head. "Just another man people will forget," he muttered. The next morning, crowds flooded the village. People climbed rooftops just to catch a glimpse of Jesus. Children laughed while running through the streets. The sick were carried on blankets. The blind were guided by friends. But Ezra stayed inside his shop until suddenly a soft knock came at his door. Ezra opened it impatiently. Standing there was a young boy soaked from the rain. "Mister," the boy said nervously, "my mother is very sick. I heard Jesus is nearby, but my sandals broke and I can't reach him." The boy lifted a torn sandal held together by rope. Ezra stared silently. For a moment he almost closed the door, but something stopped him. Without speaking, Ezra sat down and repaired the sandals carefully. When he finished, the boy smiled brightly. "Thank you." Before leaving, the child paused. "You should come see Jesus, too." Then he disappeared into the crowd. Hours passed. The storm clouds slowly cleared, and somehow Ezra could not stop thinking about those words. "You should come see Jesus, too." Finally, just before sunset, Ezra stepped outside and followed the distant sound of voices. Near the shoreline, hundreds of people surrounded a man sitting beside a fishing boat. Jesus. Ezra expected greatness, a throne perhaps, power, glory, but instead Jesus sat among ordinary people, fishermen, widows, children, the poor, the forgotten, and somehow he treated every person as if they mattered deeply. Ezra stayed at the back of the crowd. Then Jesus began speaking. "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Ezra froze. The words felt strangely personal, as if spoken directly to him. For years he carried grief like heavy chains. For years anger had filled the empty places in his heart. Yet hearing Jesus speak felt like sunlight entering a dark room. Suddenly shouting erupted nearby. The same young boy from earlier pushed through the crowd crying, "My mother, she can't breathe." People turned in panic. Jesus stood immediately. "Take me to her," he said calmly. The crowd followed through narrow streets until they reached a small broken house. Inside, the boy's mother lay trembling with fever. The room smelled of sickness and fear. Everyone watched silently as Jesus stepped beside her. He gently held her hand, and with quiet compassion he said, "You are not forgotten." The woman's breathing slowed. Her shaking stopped. Color returned to her face. Within moments, she opened her eyes fully healed. Gasps filled the room. Some people cried openly. The little boy hugged his mother tightly, but Ezra stood speechless in the corner, not because of the miracle, but because of the way Jesus looked at people. Not with power over them, but with love for them. As the crowd slowly left, Jesus turned toward Ezra. For one brief second, their eyes met, and Ezra felt something he had not felt in years. Peace, not loud, not dramatic, quiet peace, the kind that heals broken places nobody else can see. Jesus walked toward the doorway to leave. Then he stopped beside the old shoemaker. Looking down, Jesus noticed several worn-out sandals placed near the door. He smiled softly. Even the smallest work done with love matters greatly. Then he walked away into the evening light. Ezra stood frozen. Tears filled his eyes. For years he believed heaven had forgotten him. But that night, while staring at the sandals by the door, he realized Jesus had seen him all along, and from that day forward Ezra's little shop changed forever. Travelers noticed something different. The bitter old shoemaker had become kind, gentle, hopeful. Whenever someone poor entered his shop, Ezra repaired their sandals for free, and whenever people asked why he had changed, he would simply smile and say, "One day, Jesus walked into my village, and he repaired something far more broken than sandals."